Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. What's going on, everybody, man? Welcome back to The Truth with Najeh Wilkins, man. Hope everybody's having obviously a great day, man. So I know we usually shoot this show live. We usually obviously, do that. But like I said, man, to be honest with y'all, I appreciate all the love and support. It means definitely a lot to me. Um, it just, y'all, to be honest with you, life hits, and I've been struggling just navigating this process. If I'm humbly honest with y'all, so a lot personally just going on, but just trying to stay, grounded, man. Trying to stay obviously, consistent with y'all, man, because I love my fan base, man. Y'all helping me grow this thing. 1,850 subscribers on YouTube, man. We're growing, so I want to give y'all a shout out. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. But yeah, man, I'm gonna try to get back on schedule. Hopefully next week. But yeah, man, just a lot of stuff going on personally, man. If y'all can, if you guys are religious, just say a prayer for me, man. Just keep up my family in your prayers if you guys can. Just been dealing with a lot, man. So I'm recording this one. I'm gonna upload it, and I'll upload obviously how I've been doing the last few weeks of just separate videos, man. But I want to get into some college football. I know I love the sport, and give y'all the latest spill, man, and go ahead and talk about it. So without further ado, man, let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to talk first about just the biggest winners and losers from week 12, right? Again, I know it's Thursday. We could be preparing for this week 13, but Texas was a big loser to me. Um, I had them winning that game against Georgia. I thought they would. I thought they played defense played well for the most part. I thought, right? Obviously, Georgia pulls away. That was just a coaching, kind of, I won't say mishap, but a coaching mismatch almost to a degree. I love Sark. I love what he's been able to do, but Kirby's been giving him belt every time they've matched up, right? Go back to the SEC championship game, right? Obviously, Texas has a phenomenal football team, and things like that. They end up losing the game, even with Carson Beck getting knocked out, right? They end up going to shot and they still win the game. This one, like, they're in the game. Like, it's like 14-3, go 14-10, and then Georgia goes down and scores. And then before you know it, Kirby goes and does an onside kick. Then it's 28-10, right? Flips the game on his head. And then at that point, like, it's almost insurmountable. It's tough to come back when you late in the third going into the fourth after that part. But I thought Arch didn't play well either. He's still going obviously through the nicks and crannies. As I said, he needs to come back another year and work on development. But some of it's his fault and some of it's not his fault, right? Ryan Wingo, you got to catch the football. You know what I'm saying? When the ball comes your way, you got to catch it. He did get better during the game, but too many drops for them. And it feels like it's just too hard offensively, even though you have Sarkisian as your offensive coordinator, right? And obviously your head coach. It just seems too difficult for them to get going in games, and that's really hurting them. You know what I'm saying, down the stretch. Now we'll see what happens with the committee. They obviously favor, different teams and things like that with obviously the playoff rankings and everything. But if they could beat a Texas A&M, I mean, you never know. Even though they have 3 losses, you beat the number 3 team in the country, they might look at you different. They didn't really slide that much loser from Georgia. They had number 17, so they're not that far out. Remember, it's 5 conference bids and the 7 at-large bids. So you never know, man. If they win out and they beat potentially Texas A&M, they could likely get in, but they're going to have to win out to say the least. But just disappointing loss, struggled on the road. Definitely one of my losers. Next up is Alabama. They slid 6 spots. Notre Dame is over them. And obviously Alabama ugly lost to Florida State, and then obviously the loss to Oklahoma this past week. And I don't know, you have to really give credit to Brent Venables. I feel like he got the number of Kalen DeBoer. Every time in them games, they don't play well. Offense struggle. I think Ryan Williams might have had under 60 receiving yards. It just wasn't as crisp as we've seen with Alabama. And I thought defensively they did what they could in that game to keep it close, making competitive and things like that. But they didn't do enough offensively in this game in order to kind of make a difference, man. And they struggled against Oklahoma. Now you have to credit Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a top defense, right? Total defense, they're number 7 in the country, right? This team is the creme de la creme. They are really good on the defensive side of the ball. They've had the struggles, obviously, of course, but when it's time to buckle down, that team can do that. So that was definitely a tough loss for Alabama at home. I still think they have everything out in front of them. They handle their business. They got the Iron Bowl. 10-2 Alabama teams feel like you're going to be pretty much locked to get into the CFP playoff, right? And then when you think about obviously the standards of the SEC and how it is right now, at the top, obviously, Georgia's in that conversation. I'm saying Texas A&M is obviously at the top 2, and Alabama is obviously at the top with 1 loss as well. So we'll see how the tiebreakers go. It won't be determined, y'all, really until the final week of the regular season, which is next week, obviously during Thanksgiving weekend, or Thanksgiving week, I should say. Right, so that's when we're kind of determined, because a lot of the teams in the SEC, as you guys know with the schedule, it's not that many really premier matchups. They're playing kind of those non-conference opponents and things like that. There's not a lot of high-end, top-tier SEC matchups this week, man. So Alabama is definitely another one of my losers. tough one at home. You know what I'm saying? They coming to visit you, but Oklahoma has had a number. Next up, biggest one is USC. You were struggling. You were down 21-7 in that game, and it wasn't even Jaden Mayava, right? It was you leaning on the ground attack, and allowing that to be able to, kind of thrust you into winning the game. So when you have that, it really helps you out because when teams try to go and they try to prey on a Jacoby Lane, when they try to prey on a Makai Lemon, you can go and lean on the ground game. So I think that's the biggest thing I was impressed with. They played the Iowa team who was ranked. Obviously, I don't know why they were still ranked, but they were able to overcome some of their struggles. The concern, though, is defensively, and especially with the run defense. They've given up 6 touchdowns, y'all, in the past 4 games on the ground. Right, that is a little bit concerning. If you can run the ball against USC, you can have your way. We'll talk about that more in the matchup coming up they have this weekend. But USC showed that they can play and they can win ugly. Doesn't always have to go their way in order for them to come out on top and win games. So I do want to point that out as well. But that was big for their playoffs. They moved up from number 17 to number 15. So they're right in that conversation. If they can beat Oregon this weekend, which we'll talk about later, they can thrust up probably into that top 12, top 11, top 10, because Oregon is obviously sitting up there at the top. I think they're number 8 or number 9 currently right now in the CFP ranking. So big win for USC, and they're right in the thick of it, even with the 2 losses. All right, next up, big winner. Got to go Texas A&M, bro. You were down 30-3. 30-3, y'all. You know what I'm saying? You was dead in the water. Marshall Reed had his worst game of the season practically in that first half. But somehow, some way, you figure it out. Somehow, some way, you get going in the second half. Marshall Reed started to look like a Heisman candidate. He started to hit his reads. You're throwing trick plays. Casey Concepcion comes alive, right? Mario Craver comes alive. And I love the fight of this team, right? And it was crazy because they came out flat and they had just gave Mike Elko a major contract extension, 6 years, right? 6-year extension. Excuse me. So it was like you did everything you were supposed to do, and then it's like, dang, you got hit in the mouth by South Carolina, right? You know what I'm saying? On the road. And there's no way they should have lost that game up 30-3. You were up 27 points. They still lost that game. It says a lot. So I think for them, that's going to help them morale. That's going to help them knowing, hey, if we're down in games, we can come back. If we bought in, we can figure it out. And that was big for the Aggies, man, who has everything in front of them. Even if, like I said, they went out, let's say they lose the Texas last game, you'll be in the SEC championship game. I think they still can get in. Let's say, worst case scenario, they lose 2 of their last 3 or 4 games. I think at 11-2, who's to say the Aggies wouldn't get in? You know what I'm saying? Humbly. But I think that's a playoff. I think they're a natty contender. I really do. I think they have the defense. With Harrell or Howell, actually Cassius Howell. Obviously Scooby Williams. And they're doing a great job in the recruiting class. Like Texas A&M is the real deal, bro. So the fact that they was able to win that game, you got to credit and tip your cap, man. And Marcel Reed and obviously Mike Elko. That team is for real, man. So they're one of my biggest winners as well from this past week, man. But let's go ahead and get into the nitty gritty, man. Let's talk about this college football slate. And we're going to start with a nightcapper to get us going. Hold on, let me share my screen with y'all boys. All right, let's start with the nitty gritty. The nitty gritty. I will be on site. I will be at this game. I was there all week. I didn't go today, but I'm excited for this one, y'all. Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech, man. This is a massive game for both teams, right? Pittsburgh, I think they hurt their playoff chances by losing, getting throttled by Notre Dame. If they could have handled business at home, it would have been a different scenario. But they blitzed, they battered, they bruised Mason Heitschel. That is what they did, man. They made it tough for him, and they could not get things going on the ground, right? So that was massive for them, obviously at home. And Notre Dame, which defense has been kind of up and down this year, that made all the difference in the world. Credit to Notre Dame and their defense, man, and the job that they've been obviously doing this year. Right now, my biggest question for them is Desmond Reed. Right, obviously have Ja'Carrion Turner, who's been doing his thing this year, 414 yards rushing this year. But my biggest thing is Desmond Reed's kind of that virtuoso, versatile piece for them. He can do a little bit of everything, y'all. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run it. He can play slot. He's a virtuoso, and he's not a big dude, but that sideline to sideline, if you're Georgia Tech, kind of worries you a little bit because they got multiple playmakers they can get the ball to on the outside that can hurt you, right? They've struggled with that a little bit this year. You know what I'm saying? And especially with the struggles that Georgia Tech has had running the ball, not running the ball, with their run defense, that's going to be something to watch for in this game. They're one of the bottom ranked teams. I think they're in the hundreds when it comes to run defense. They're giving up about 7 yards a carry, and I think over 160 yards rushing, probably more than that now. So that's something they're going to have to figure out. That's one of the keys I have in this game for Georgia Tech. They have to figure out their run defense, right? We'll talk about their offense here in a second, but Pittsburgh can run the football, right? Now they got stymied, against Notre Dame. But this team can't run the football, and they got multiple pieces they get the ball to. And then the wide receiver. Georgia Tech did not have a good game, right? You go look at last week, going up against obviously Boston College and obviously their receivers. They torched them. They had two 100-yard receivers last game. So Georgia Tech has to figure that part out, right? And that's a little scary with what Johnson's been doing this year. 600 yards receiving, 41 catches, 4 tubs. He's been balling out this year. Do you have an answer for that? Luckily for Georgia Tech, Amari Harvey has returned from his injury. Obviously, he played last week. He should have more full-time minutes, I think, in this game. So that should help them out, obviously, a lot. So getting him his return. And Jai Gilmore should have another game under his belt, which should help them out, obviously, as well. So those are a couple things, obviously, to watch. Can Georgia Tech secondary hold up? And I think the biggest thing is, can they generate any kind of a pass rush, right? Any kind, because Dylan Lonergan last week was back there, calling his girlfriend, checking on his mom for Thanksgiving. Like, they literally had no answer defensively for them. They got a couple stops, which was good, but they literally had no answer for for Lonergan, who lit them up last week. Like, this team averaged 323 yards per game for Boston College. They went off for like nearly, I think, or more than 500 yards. Tech has to figure that out. That's the biggest thing there. And you have a Pittsburgh offense that can get off. They put up 50-plus points on NC State, right? You can't just look at the Notre Dame game and say, oh, okay, well, this is a team that doesn't score. No, this team scores points, and their defense is elite, right? We'll talk about that more on the other flip side of this game. But those are key things on defense for Georgia Tech, right? Can you stop the running game? Can you not allow the receivers to go off against your corners? Your corners early in the season played really well, been struggling as of late. Do you have an answer for Johnson? Can you slow down, obviously, Desmond Reed as well? And can you batter and bruise Mason Heistro a little bit with your pass rush, right? It hasn't been good. Coming into this game. Andre Fuller is questionable, right? He's your young thoroughbred, true freshman guy that can, create pressure. He's really good in run defense. You need somebody to step up in this game. It can't just be a Kilo Stone. It can't just be Jordan Vandenberg. It has to be somebody else that can step up for you and make a true difference. That is what that's what Georgia Tech's been missing out on. And when you have a true freshman quarterback, you got to make him uncomfortable. Again, he can sling that thing. He got like 4 300-yard games this season, including a 400-yard game as well against NC State when he cooked them for 424, I think 3 touchdowns. So this kid can't sling it, but he's also turnover prone, right? That's where your defensive line comes in. If you got a game record of somebody that can get some pressure on him and speed him up, get him off of a spot, that helps you out. That plays into obviously your hands if you're a Georgia Tech defense. So those are the key defensively for Georgia Tech. Offensively, you Pittsburgh, try to hit them over the top, obviously. Run the ball, get the running game going. They're giving up 6 to 7 yards of carry and lean on play action. Now, for Tech offensively, offense is elite, right? Damn near 500 yards. 500 yards, y'all, of total offense in every game this year. And the crazy part is teams are keying in on them. So when you break down this matchup, number 6 rush defense for Pittsburgh, right? And what is it led by, right? It's led by Lewis, and it's led obviously by Rasheem Biles. Now, he's a player I highlighted in my SI article. Dude's been balling. He's one of the highest rated defenders for Pittsburgh per PFF, right? 60-plus tackles this year. Obviously has multiple sacks, forced fumbles, and obviously multiple interceptions. Each interception he's had, I think he's returned for a touchdown. Kid is elite, right? So up front, they got dudes. They don't got Aaron Donald back there, but they got dudes on the defensive line. So they're going to make it tough. They're not going to allow Malachi Hosley and Jamal Haynes and Haynes King with the RPO. They're not going to let you do that, right? But one thing you got going for yourself is something that Pat Narduzzi pointed out in his press conference is you got Haynes King and you got a team that moves the ball a lot, right? You have a team that does different formations. That can confuse people, right? Obviously, they watched their tape and they studied the film for Coach Narduzzi, but he even said they got multiple formations, right? And it's hard to obviously stay up with. So that's going to be something to watch in this game as well. I look for Georgia Tech, if I'm them, lean on the passing game, right? Obviously, try to establish the run there, run first team. But lean on Eric Rivers, who's gotten better and better. 500 yards receiving this year, 36 catches, and obviously touchdown. Lean on Jordan Allen, right? What I'm saying? He looked like he's going to be the guy, obviously behind Malik Rutherford, right? Bailey Stockton was cleared to play. I don't think he sees a lot of minutes in his game humbly compared to what Coach Brent Key said, right? So lean on your young thoroughbreds. Lean on obviously Jordan Allen, right? Malik Rutherford should be ready to go. That's your big play guy down the field, right? Lean on your tight ends, right? That's going to be a key piece of your Georgia Tech because you can throw to Josh Beatham. You know what I'm saying? You can throw to several guys and obviously make the difference and do things like that, right? That's going to be the key, right? If you're Georgia Tech, lean on a Luke Harper, right? A Josh Beetham, a JT Byrne, because they're going to over pursue them deep play guys, the Eric Rivers and the Malik Rutherfords and the Jordan Allens. That's when you go and you hit them with the flat routes, right? The little crossers with the tight ends. That's all they need to do in this game. Now they got the athletes on the defensive side of the ball for Pittsburgh, but if you lean on those other guys, just with some misconceptions, some deception, that should help you if you're Georgia Tech. So I think the running game will be a little bit tough. Not that Georgia Tech don't have a formidable offensive line; they do, one of the best ones in the country. But if I'm Georgia Tech, I'm leaning on my passing game with Haynes King, who has thrown for over 300 yards, I think, in 3 consecutive games. You got the pieces to do it. A lot of people sleep on this offense because it's like, oh, we don't have any star players offensively, but you actually do, right? Besides Haynes King, who's a Heisman candidate in my book, you got pieces you can get the ball to. If I'm Georgia Tech, I'm leaning on that. I want to play with a lead in this game. I don't want to play around with Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to come from behind because it's going to be tough. A lot of people was taking, obviously, Pittsburgh to win this game. When you look at the spread, it's 2.5, which basically means it's kind of a toss-up, and 57% expect Georgia Tech to win per the analytics. So it's an interesting game. It's a home. It's a nightcap. They always play well in the type of games for the Yellow Jackets, man. So that's a very, very good positive for them. You know what I'm saying? They play really good in night games. So that helps them out, obviously, a lot. They've won a number of games at night, big time. NC State last year, UNC, which was the start of the Brent Key era of them winning big games at home, right? So got all this culmination. It's senior night. It's a big day on the flats. You know what I'm saying? Last game for Haynes King, last game for Jamal Haynes, last game for Jordan Vandenberg, last game for Amari Harvey, last game for Malik Rutherford. And you got a chance to punch your ticket to the ACC title game. It don't get much better than that if you're Georgia Tech. You know what I'm saying? And you got Georgia next week. So for Georgia Tech, handle your business, play with a lead. You'll need your defense to play better, create some turnovers. If you could do that, this offense, I feel like they can score and make you pay. And then from that point, lean on your running game to close it out, man. But I'm going to go Georgia Tech, close game, close victory. I'm going to go by 10. I'm going to go 31-21. They pull away late and get the victory punch. They take it to Charlotte and come out on top, man. Advance to 10-1 on the year. That's how I got it going, man. Had to give y'all a little in-depth breakdown of the game, and I'm excited. It should be a good one. Two really elite teams. I wish Pittsburgh would have came into this game at 8-2 because it would have created even more intrigue and would have been even a better quality win, obviously, for Georgia Tech and the Yellow Jackets, man. But I'm going to leave it there. That's the first game breakdown. Yes, sir. All right, let's hit the next one. All right. This one on noon, obviously on ABC, man, really, really good game. Oklahoma and obviously Missouri. The biggest question that I don't know just yet, but is Bo Pribula going to play or is it Matt Zollers? Right? We know how good this team can be when Bo Pribula is obviously the quarterback. They play at a very high rate, right? But the key in this game, if you're Oklahoma, is you got to slow down Ahmad Hardy. Ahmad Hardy's been having a phenomenal season. He's the leading rusher right now in NCAA, right? He's obviously one of the best at running the ball, right? But we've seen teams with strong defensive fronts obviously be able to stop them, right? We've seen teams, Alabama, be able to slow down Hardy a little bit, right? I think they held him to 50-some yards in that game. So we've seen that at a consistent rate, and we know that Oklahoma has that defensive front in order to do so. You know what I'm saying? We know that. So that's going to be an interesting chess match there. And then if Bo Pribula plays, can they hit the big plays down the field with Coleman Jr. and all their receivers in their receiving core, right? That's going to be very interesting to see, right? Because if they slow down the run game, that kind of limits your play action a little bit, right? And that makes it to where you're kind of one-dimensional to a degree. And Oklahoma's a team, you don't want to be one-dimensional, right? You don't want to just be pass, pass, pass. You want to be able to run the football. You know what I'm saying? You want to be able to do play action, throw different plays. Their defensive front is just too good, bro. They're one of the top teams, I believe, in sacks this year as well. They're too good, right? They're too good. So they're gonna have to figure that out, obviously, early enough in this game, and it's gonna be interesting to see if Bo Pribula plays, right? If you Missouri has been a little susceptible to big plays. So, like I said, if you Oklahoma, you got to get the running game going outside of a John Mateer, right? Now, Mateer, remember, early in the season, he was a Heisman candidate, right? Had that injury to his obvious hand. Hasn't been necessarily the same player. He's been doing just enough to get done. But the problem is they haven't gotten enough from Blaylock, right? They haven't gotten enough from a running game. A lot of times, Mateer has had to kind of carry the team on his back with running the football, right? And being the leading rusher. So that's kind of been really tough for them this year, as far as obviously the Sooners go. But they play a quality game. They play good football. This is a big one for them at home. You pretty much can throw the proverbial knockout blow to Missouri if you win this game, right? That's the proverbial knockout. You're 9-2 with one game left. Likely don't get into an SEC championship, but that might be enough to help you punch your ticket. If you're 10-2 in the SEC and you went 6-2, or excuse me, if you're 10-2 overall, you went 6-2 in the SEC. That might be just enough, right? And if you Oklahoma, lean on Stagner, the second, man. He's been having a really good season. Underrated guy, 718 yards, 53 catches, and 5 tubs. He's been having obviously a really good season. But like I said, the key for Oklahoma, slow down Lamar Hardy, right? If Bo Prabula plays, get pressure on him. He's shown he's been a little bit susceptible. We've seen the Alabama game when pressure comes his way. And then obviously lean on Mateer in the passing game to kind of get going. And you got to try to establish some kind of a run if you Oklahoma. It can't be all on Mateer. He can run the ball. He's a dual threat option, but you got to be able to kind of get different pieces to step up as well. But a really big game for both teams. Missouri still has a little bit of life. I don't know if they would get in at 5-3 in the SEC, but they are ranked in the CFP poll. But this is the proverbial knockout blow for Oklahoma for them. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I think 10-2 in conference play for the Sooners, that will get you in. I really do believe that. So we'll see, man. Big game coming up, obviously in Norman, Oklahoma. I'm going with the Sooners. I think they win this one pretty handily. I'm going to go 35-17 victory. I think they struggle to just kind of establish that run for Missouri, and I think they get after Prabula, whoever plays, if it's Zollers. I think they get after him with that with that defensive pass rush, and they create negative plays and create turnovers, man. So Oklahoma by a long shot, 35-17. John Mateer has one of his better games of the year, and they advanced to 9-2 in the year. There you have it. All right, y'all, let's keep rolling. That's obviously that one. Let's go to the big one. Okay, so ESPN College Game Day is going to obviously be at this game. It's a massive one on CBS, man. Big one between USC and obviously Oregon, right? Two really good teams. You know what I'm saying? Oregon is highly favored, but if you USC, you kind of in search of that quality win, right? You could have had one against Notre Dame, fell short. We talked about it a little bit earlier for the Trojans. Can you stop the run right now? Now, Oregon's a team. They can run that football, right? They can run that football with Whittington. He's having a solid year, 623 yards rushing. They can run that football. One thing Oregon gonna have multiple backs, right? So can the defense do enough in order to slow that down, right? That's going to be the interesting thing for me in this game. Dante Moore has been having a good year, underrated quarterback, I think, still as well. Hasn't been named really in that Heisman conversation as much as he was earlier in the year, but been solid all season long for Oregon, and they at home. They got to come to Eugene. USC hasn't always been good on the road. Right now, if this game was obviously in LA, that might be a different ball game, different story. But for me, I feel like that might be too much for them. Road, significant game. I like Oregon, and I like the defense and what they've been able to do this year. But again, Oregon's going to have to make sure at number 7 they handle their business. And again, this is a proverbial knockout blow type of a game, right? 9-2 Oregon, 6-2 in the Big Ten. If they lose, USC they lose, they'd be 8-3, 6-2 in the Big Ten. That's probably the proverbial knockout blow for the Trojans, unfortunately. Just how the conference is going. So it's a massive game. This is a playoff game between two really good teams. This is a playoff game, right? The keys for USC, you've seen last week that your team can battle through adversity and come out on top, right? Their defense showing they can make stops, right? The concern defensively, though, is that you don't have enough, or you can't stop the run, right? That's the biggest concern. Stopping the run. Can you stop the run? Right? If you're USC and obviously the Trojans. That's the biggest question defensively for them, right? Because Oregon can do that for you. Can you create enough pressure with your defenders, right? Only 3.5 sacks for Shelby, who's your leading sack getter. You need pressure on Dante Moore. You have to make him feel uncomfortable. Those are the keys defensively for USC. Now, going to the offense, I liked what I saw last week because Mayava didn't have a great game. And you didn't need him to have a great game for you to win that contest on the road or win that contest against Iowa. Right, you got a King Miller who's been tearing it up this year, had one of his best games last week, right? We know how good your receiving core is with Kyle Lemon and Jacoby Lane, right? So it's going to be interesting to see, if they take away those two threats on the outside, can Miller get off again and have that kind of a game against that strong front 7 in the defensive front for the Oregon Ducks, right? That's going to be real interesting to kind of see if they're able to do that. You know what I'm saying? But USC, I think the key is being well-balanced again. Let Mayava do his thing. But also leaving your ground intact to keep Oregon honest. You're going to have to keep Oregon honest if you want a chance to win this game. You're just going to have to. For Oregon, obviously for the Ducks, the key here is, like I said, attack their porous defense, attack the run defense that they have because they have not done well this year in slowing that down. Right, they've struggled. We've seen Jeremiah Love go off for 228 yards against them boys, and said, "Oh, I think that was probably a career high for him." Right, they've struggled against the run. So if you Oregon, you can play ball control. You know you got the defense in order to get after Mayava a little bit, make him struggle. So if you Oregon, lean on obviously your defense, run the ball, let when the shots is there with Decorian Moore, hopefully he's back for this game. Hit them shots deep down the field, lean on Dante Moore and company, and obviously your running game. And I feel like if you Oregon, you should come out on top. So for that reason, I like the quarterback. I think he's been playing better. I don't think USC has enough run defense to slow down Oregon. So for that reason, I'm going Oregon Ducks, man. I'm going to go 31-24 victory. I think it's still going to be a good game, but I think Oregon's going to put together more drives in order to kind of separate and obviously win this game. So I'm going with the Ducks. All right, let's keep it rolling. All right, night game, man. Massive night game. Two Big 12 teams. I told you how I felt about Cincinnati. They shouldn't be ranked. But if you BYU, you got to be careful. And they're only favored by 2.5. Obviously in this game, obviously the ESPN predictor gives them a 68% chance to win this game. But it's a lot going into this one, right? If you're Cincinnati, some of these games you didn't handle business, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You know what I'm saying, to come out on top. You got spanked by a couple of teams on the road. Obviously, a close game against Nebraska. Nebraska not as good as people thought. And obviously, you got spanked by other teams, you know what I'm saying, this year as well. But you got a good team, right? You got Allen, and he's been having a strong season, right? You got Walker, who's been elusive on the ground, right? Brendan Sorsby's been really good as your quarterback this year. But it feels like this is a team that's hot and cold, inconsistent, right? Like some games they play really good, other games they don't play the same. So it's like, can you get enough obviously from that in order to do that? You know, so that's going to be obviously crucial, to say the least. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to be something to continue to obviously to watch for, and obviously to see if they can be a more consistent football team. That's going to be the biggest, obviously, question there. Can it be consistent? Can the defense get stops? And if you BYU, it's all in front of you, right? Your goal, if you BYU, is to make a Big 12 championship, right? You know, Bear Brockmeyer and what he's been doing this season, he's obviously been very solid, right? 2,000 yards passing this year, 13 tubs of just 4 interceptions. And you have a really good ground game at LJ Martin, right? LJ Martin's been superb this year. He'll probably rush for 1,000 yards in this game alone, right? And you've been well balanced if you BYU, right? 215 yards through the air for this season and about 135 to 150 on the ground. You've been consistent this year, right? Your concern a little bit is defensively, right? Because you got the players, you got the personnel, but you've given up some big plays. You've given up some big scores, you know what I'm saying? So can you tackle them in space, right? Cincinnati's really good in space. You know the crowd going to be ready to go for this one, a potential knockoff blow. I won't say knockoff blow, but a potential big upset win at home in Cincinnati. Like they're going to get up for that game, and it's a nightcap game too on Fox. Yeah, you can bet your hat people are going to be at that game and obviously turn it up. So we know how electric of an environment BYU has in Utah, but it's going to be crucial that they bring that on the road. So I'm looking for guys like Kelly. I'm looking for guys like Satula to be able to wrap up and tackle in space. That's going to be important in this game because Cincinnati can burn you. You don't want a slow start if you BYU in this game. You know, you want to get out to a quick start. Looking on your offense, obviously really good offensive line. Let LJ Martin cook with the ball in his hands and make Cincinnati play from behind. Right? Not saying they're not geared up to do that, but make them play from behind. Don't let them get into a rhythm early in this game, or it could be tough sledding. So that's going to be crucial, man. In this one, I like BYU and their head coach and what they've been doing so far this year. Only loss was to Texas Tech. I think the Cougars handle business. They win. I think this will be another close game, 31-28. But all that matters is you get the win. You go 10-1. Obviously, on the year 7-1 in the Big 12, and you've handled your business and did what you're supposed to do. So massive game for both teams. Nightcap. BYU got to handle business. If you get upset, it's probably going to be pretty tough for you to get into the CFP playoff. Hate to say it, you know, or you're going to have to try to get that automatic bid in terms of the Big 12 champion. But they're going to have to be careful because then Cincinnati has that tiebreak if they beat them. So, excuse me, it's a big game, man. Two really good teams. They're going to have to make sure they do what they're supposed to do, obviously, in the game and definitely lean on They pieces offensive, man. But I'm going BYU 31-28, major victory, obviously, for them. All right, let's see the next one. All right, y'all. Now this game is tomorrow night. There's no real significance to this game. I just wanted to talk ACC. I cover obviously the conference a good bit. But Florida State picked up obviously a big win here last week. NC State got throttled against Miami 41-7. Offense struggled. CJ Bailey struggled. And I was thoroughly surprised because this team is really good, right? They put it on Georgia Tech, but they just didn't have no answers from Miami. Miami really made them look just not right in that game. So the key, I think, if you NC State is making Tommy Castellanos feel uncomfortable. Excuse me. Making him go to his other reads, making him think more, right? When Tommy ain't reacting and going with the flow, when he's thinking, what I'm saying, and things like that, and he's uncomfortable, that kind of plays into your hands if you're NC State, right? So we know NC State defense is questionable. What I'm saying, it ain't the best. So this really could be a shootout. In my humble opinion, we see Florida State been in a couple shootout games this year. But if you're Florida State, you don't want it to be a shootout. You want to make this game essentially one where you can control the game clock. You can lean on Sawchuck. You can lean on maybe Usman Kroma. You can lean on Tommy Castellanos in the run game. Obviously, you got Deuce Robinson on the outside who's having a fantastic year. You want to lean on that and make NC State play from behind if you Florida State, right? You don't want to be playing shootout with them because they can win shootouts. Right, CJ Bailey is that good. Like he can do that and win a shootout game and throw for a whole bunch of yards, right? And hit different receivers. Justin Jolly, right? Anderson, right? We know about Hollywood Smothers. They got Jaden Duke Scott that backs him up. They got pieces all over the field. You know what I'm saying? So if you're Florida State, you don't want this game to be a shootout because a shootout it might be a long night. You know what I'm saying? But it's a Friday night game. On ESPN. If you NC State, that'd be another massive win. You would get bowl eligibility. Essentially for you, and then you can continue to build building blocks moving forward. If you NC State, so Florida State big game. I'm gonna go NC State in this one though. I'm gonna go surprise pick. I like obviously the Wolfpack what they was doing. I was impressed with what Bailey did against Georgia Tech, not having some of his weaponry and what he was able to do. Again, ugly loss to Miami, but I think NC State will be ready to go in this one and they pull out the victory over the Florida State Seminoles. So I'm going 28-14 win for NC State. I think they come out on top and win this one. So I'm going 28-14 over the Seminoles. All right, let's hit our next one. All right, next game. All right, let's talk about it. All right, so it is kind of a big game, and it's not like if Louisville would have handled business last week and it would have beat Clemson, it'd be an even more interesting game. But it's interesting because Louisville can pretty much throw that proverbial knockout punch as well to obviously SMU, right? Again, 7-3, not having a great year, but they still 5-1 in the ACC, right? Noon game. If Louisville can go on the road, which they're more than capable of doing, and beating SMU, that knocks them out, right? They have no chance at getting into the SEC or ACC championship game, right? Now it's interesting because Louisville has struggled in some of the games this year. Obviously, they've been dealing with some injuries to some of their core. I think Isaac Brown went down with an injury, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they'll be leaning on some of the other pieces. But the key is just like Miller Moss has to take care of the football, right? Miller Moss has to take care of the football. He has to obviously be able to, survey the field, not get flustered, not throw the ball up for grabs in tight windows in traffic. Because really, like SMU defense is susceptible, right? You can throw on it, you can run on it. So, I think for Louisville, important part and piece is going to be getting Miller Moss in a rhythm early, right? And you do that by having a really effective running game. It don't have to be 8-9 yards of carry. But if you're getting 5 assists consistently, you set up second and shorts, you open up the whole playbook. You can run different plays. And you got one of the best receivers in the ACC, in my opinion, right? Nobody really talks about him, but Chris Bell is that guy, right? He's a stud. And I like what the defense can, or what he can do to a defense, right? Nearly 1,000 yards receiving this year. Kid is a stud, right? And if you Louisville, I'm leaning on kind of a balanced attack, really good running backs, Duke Watson. You got obviously Q1 Brown. You got pieces you need in order to make a difference in this game. And you know they secondary is susceptible. So if you Louisville leaning on that and being able to obviously be balanced, is going to play obviously into your hands, right? Now the Cardinals, the going up against Kevin Jennings, who he's had an up and down career. Like he's been good when he's been good, and then he's been okay and towards the lower end of the spectrum when he hasn't been as good, right? So we know they can do a little bit of everything. We know Kevin Jennings is always going to have a shot in games. Um, they don't lose a lot of games. In terms of the ACC play, they've been really good over the last few years. And if you SMU, your goal is to get back to a title game, right? And to ruffle some feathers and get into a, obviously CFP playoff. But it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be one of the best games in the ACC besides Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech, right? A lot on the line for both teams. I mean, Louisville, obviously already bowl eligible, not too much for them. But if you SMU, you got a lot to play for because you're trying to stay on track. You're trying to stay in the running for obviously an ACC title spot, right? Need some things to go your way, but you could potentially, get back in that conversation. So those are some of the keys to watching this game. I like Louisville here on the road. I think they can do what they need to do in order to come out on top. I like the balanced attack on the ground. And like I said, just get Chris Bell going early and often, man. And Miller Moss just has to take care of the football. Pressure Kevin Jennings, force him to some mistakes. He's been a little turnover prone. If you can do that and slow down the offense, I think you got a good chance to win the game. So I'm going Louisville, man. In this one, I think it'll be a higher scoring attack. I'm going to go 31-24 win for Louisville over SMU, man. And SMU pretty much gets knocked out of the ACC title game with that loss. So I'm going with Louisville for the win. All right, let's hit our next one. All right. Sorry, y'all. All right. So massive game, right? If you Miami, you're sitting in a good spot. Even though you lost the unexcusable game to SMU, you lost the game obviously to Louisville. You sit in a good spot, right? The reason I brought this one up to talk about is because it's a sleepwalker game, right? We've seen Virginia Tech have Louisville on the ropes, right? We've seen Virginia Tech have multiple teams on the ropes this season. When you got a veteran quarterback, you win any game, right? When you got a Kyron Jones who hasn't necessarily had the career, maybe he's won it, but when you have that, it allows you to be in any game. And we've seen this defense be able to step up in key spots and be able to make plays, right? So, this is a game, again, Virginia Tech, get an early start, right? We get an early start, make Miami play behind the eight ball. You gotta like obviously your chances into this game, right? And if you're Virginia Tech, right, you've struggled with the turnover margin this year. So taking care of the ball is going to be obviously very, very key for you, right? And then you got to convert your third downs, right? Miami has one of the better third down conversion defenses in the country, right? They shut you down on those downs, on those money downs. You know what I'm saying? They do what they're supposed to do, and they shut you down, right? So it's going to be key for them, obviously, to slow them down and be able to, you know, um, create havoc. And Miami has some of the best edge rushers in the country, right? Two top picks, I think, in Messenger and obviously Ruben Bain Jr., who might have an argument for the number one overall pick come next spring, right? So, for if you're Miami, don't let Virginia take it out to a hot start. Create pressure on Drones. Drones been known for some interceptions. Collapse the pocket, what I'm saying, and make him obviously peel out. And you got the speed on the outside to slow him down. Your corners are really good. Obviously, Bryce Fitzgerald's been having a strong year for you. Miami is a very competent team, but like I said, it's easier said than done. We go into a raucous environment. They just hired their head coach of the future in James Franklin, which was a great hire, by the way. That Virginia Tech's going to be buzzing a little bit. So Miami's going to have to make sure they don't play down to them. We've seen it in the last few years under Mario Cristobal. Unfortunately, they've played down the teams. They played down in California last year, right? You know what I'm saying? They played down the teams that they were better than. So that's the reason I brought this game up. Can't play down in them. Lean on Mark Fletcher and company. Carson Beck has to take care of the ball. In the games they lost, he has like 3-4 interceptions almost in every game. He has to take care of the football. Lean on your obviously your ground attack with Mark Fletcher. And then when the shots is there with CJ Downs and Malachi Tony, you hit them down the field. That's going to be key for Miami to obviously come out on top with a win. Excuse me. But they got the defensive front to affect Kyron Jones and make him feel uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? And they don't have the weapons or the receivers to really threaten the Miami secondary or defense, in my humble opinion. They got Hawkins who can run the ball, but that's not going to be enough in order to win on the outside consistently. I don't think VT is able to do that. I think Miami is able to get off to a good start, and I think they're going to lean on Fletcher to kind of ice this one away, man. So I think for Miami, you keep balling, keep winning big games, and you should obviously you should be able to find your way in 10-2, obviously 6-2 in conference play. You should be able to try to find your way into a CFP playoff. So I'm going Hurricanes. My Hurricanes. I think we blow out Virginia Tech. I think they have no answers for our offense. I'm gonna go 48-10 victory for us. I think fortunately it'll be an ugly loss for Kyron Jones and company, but I do believe that Miami's gonna do enough with all their weapons, their defensive line, defensive front, and all the pieces they got in order to make plays at a consistent rate. So I'm going Hurricanes in this one, 48-10. Y'all boys, give me 1 second. We're finna hit up the. All right, y'all. So I'm back. Let's hit the next one. Talked about Miami Hurricanes and the Virginia Tech Hokies. Let's talk about Duke and North Carolina. All right. Now look, again, this ain't no massive game. It's just a rivalry. We want to talk about big rivalry games. We know how big of a game this is in college basketball, right? So two teams kind of reeling a little bit. Duke, you in the driver's seat. You was 4-1 in the ACC, right? You kind of blew that a little bit against Virginia. Your offense struggled a little bit the week before you lost to UConn. Your defense struggled, gave up 37 points, right? So you're missing different pieces and stuff like that. And you're giving up too many points. That one against Virginia, your offense kind of got shut down a little bit, right? Darian Mensah, 18, I think 18 for 36, or 18 for something. 35. He struggled completing passes in that game. He's had a strong season, but struggled obviously against a very good Virginia defense. Well, obviously led by Cam Robinson, Jason Pervar, Devin Neal struggled against them boys, right? So in this one, right, can you get Nate Shepard back on track, right? He's had a good true freshman season, but you need him to be a little bit more of a consistent runner, right? And you got to get him going. You know what I'm saying? Now, North Carolina, they still figuring stuff out. I think next year you see the year they take that step forward. Humbly, right? But they picked up some cool wins, right? Lost to Wake Forest here recently. Gio Lopez has been kind of up and down, but we know that Duke has a really good, strong defensive front, right? They really do. If they can get after you, they can make your life terrible, right? And if you have a defensive line that can't really, or offensive line that can't really block, it could be a long day for you. They got two really good ends, starting with Vincent Anthony Jr. I think he has. Let me make sure I got my stats right. I think he has. He has 6.5 sacks. He's had a good year, right? So where Duke's susceptible is their secondary, right? But a good pass rush can make up for that because then you ain't got to cover as long, right? So North Carolina has to have a plan offensively to stop Vincent Anthony Jr., to stop some of their edge rushers, or it could be a long day. You know what I'm saying? So that's the part that they kind of have to figure out. If UNC wants to have a chance to win this game. You know what I'm saying? But if you do, you blew some golden opportunities for yourself this year, right? You could have been in that conversation for ACC title game. Unfortunate losses, obviously, this year. Offense didn't play up to snuff as it should in some of the games. Defense didn't pull or hold their weight. So you're gonna look at this season as a lost opportunities and stuff like that. but you know you got the pieces in place in order to succeed, obviously, for the future. You should have Darian Minson unless he hits the quarterback for at least another year. You'll have that Nate Shepard out for another year. You have to play some of that production on the defensive line, obviously, of course, but you got good pieces moving forward, right? So, yeah, this game's going to come down to, can North Carolina block the defensive front, right? Can they get going offensively? Can Gio Lopez be a little bit more consistent as a passer for, obviously, the Tar Heels? That's going to be something to watch for. And can they get the ground game going a little bit to kind of help with that play action and hit those shots, obviously, over top of some of those defenses? Because remember, their defense of secondary is more susceptible to big plays. What helps and aids in that is the pressure that they can create. And if you do get Nate Shepard going and leaning on the obviously deep threats down the field, and Cooper Bakar, who's had a pretty good year, transferred over, that's what you got to do if you do. You know you got the quarterback. One of the top quarterbacks, man, in passing yards this year, right? He can sling that thing, right? He just has to come up bigger in some of those bigger games. If Minson can do that more consistently, he can obviously be a great player moving forward. But I'm going to go Duke in this one. I don't think North Carolina is just ready just yet. So I'm going to go Duke with the win. I'm going to go 41-17 victory for Duke. I think Duke comes out on top. All right. Now we got a couple more. All right. Now it's a big game, right? Obviously for Tennessee. All right, now this is a big game for Tennessee, right? Because I still don't know how they're ranked, but to each his own, right? But Tennessee's been dealing with a lot, right? Tennessee's been dealing with a lot. Bukara obviously is going to hit the transfer portal. He's no longer on the team. You know what I'm saying? So you lose a piece there. I know he's played sporadically this year, but he's a good defensive player. 3 forced fumbles, I think he had this year. So you lose that on your back end, right? But if you Tennessee, can you kind of exercise those demons against Florida, right? You haven't won in the swamp in quite some time, right? Been about 10 games. So, you got to handle business if you Tennessee, right? And it's the best year to get Florida. Now, Florida showed you they are a gritty bunch, right? Because they went on the road and they gave Ole Miss a game, right? They made it tough for them, and Ole Miss had to go in the fourth quarter and have to pull that one out, right? Imagine them at home with nothing really to play for, just playing for pride at that point. That could be a dangerous game for Tennessee. Now, we know the offense can be good. Games they've lost, Joey Aguilar has turned over the ball obviously more than he's supposed to, right? Again, he's had a decent season for you, but 10 interceptions is a little bit concerning. Again, turn over the ball too much. I think if you Tennessee, lean on the ground attack with Deshaun Bishop, obviously start Thomas. We know how good those guys are. Lean on that. We know about the pieces you got in the receiving game with Chris Brazzell II, Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley. Lean on that a little bit and make DJ Lagway feel uncomfortable because he's also very prone to turnovers, right? He hasn't had a good year. He's even got benched at one point in this year for Tramel Jones, right? But if you Tennessee, the key is going to be your defensive front. Jackson Mall, Bailey, Joshua Josephs, just making it tough for Florida to run the ball because they got a guy in Jaden Ball who's really good, right? Kid can go, right? He's one of the top backs outside of Amar Hardy in the SEC. He's one of the best backs. You know what I'm saying? I would go Amar Hardy and probably Jaden Ball, right in that conversation, in my humble opinion. So if you Tennessee, you're going to have to create pressure on Lagway, make him feel uncomfortable. He's been prone to throwing turnovers, so you got that in your bag. And then you're going to have to slow down Jaden Ball defensively. That's the key, right? If you let them establish that running game and that play action with DJ Lagway, he can hurt you with Vernell Brown III, and obviously Eugene Wilson. Dallas Wilson's out for the year, I believe. So you're going to have to lean on that. And that defense for Florida, I'm going to say this for Tennessee, can't turn over the ball. You can't turn over the ball. Turn over the ball against Florida, it's going to be a long day because Florida has shown defensively they have a top team defensively, right? They can go. They got Caleb Banks. They got, obviously, Miles Graham. They got guys that can get after you, right? And Florida makes it very tough to score on them. So if you give them possessions with fumbles or turnovers and Joey Aguilar's a little bit careless, that could be a long day for you. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to have to take care of the football and not turn it over, or Florida's going to make them pay. And they're going to find themselves, unfortunately, they're going to be in a damn dogfight. You know what I'm saying? And that's how Florida wants it. You're going to mess around and find yourself in a dogfight. And you end up in a dogfight with Florida, you ain't going to win it. Hate to say it. Not saying Tennessee ain't a tough team. They are. But a dogfight with Florida, they're going to find some way somehow, right? Especially in Gainesville, Swamp, Night game, ABC. Yeah, okay. You play around with it if you want to. If you're Tennessee, it's gonna be a long night. So if you're Tennessee, take care of the football. Lay on the ground game. Get that going early in the game. Slow down Jaden Ball and create pressure. That should be your game plan if you're Tennessee. If you Florida, establish the running game. Get DJ Lockman comfortable early and often. Hit them shot plays down the field. They've been a little susceptible to that for the Tennessee defense. And now obviously allow your defense to get after them. Play with a lead. If you can play with a lead, Aguilar's been a little bit prone to turnovers, especially when he's getting a little bit of pressure. So those are the keys for both teams. I'm going to actually go upset here. I'm going to go upset. I'm going to go Florida. I think Florida can find some way to pull this one out and go 4-7. So I got Florida pulling this one out. Close victory, 24-17 victory over Tennessee. I think they pull it out and they pretty much knock out Tennessee from obviously the CFP playoff rankings and obviously from the CFP playoff. So that's where we going with it. All right, next game. Let's hit this one, y'all. Kentucky and Vanderbilt, right? So obviously for Vanderbilt, again, you just want to handle your business, right? But same thing with Florida. Kentucky has shown that they're a team that can make it tough for you. They have shown, obviously, they're a team that can make things very interesting. And the reason I say that is because they play teams tough, right? They've beaten some teams that you wouldn't expect them to kind of whoop up on, right? You think about obviously game against Florida, 38-7 victory over them, right? Auburn held them boys to only 3 points, right? Crazy because all the talent they got, only 3 points. So Kentucky's been playing really good as of late. They've won 3 consecutive games, right? And I'm not saying they're going to go in there and obviously beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt should be favored. They got Diego Papi, who's a Heisman candidate. But Bowley and them boys been playing good. McGowan, they're getting going on the ground game. So Kentucky's a tougher matchup than people think. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you're Vanderbilt, you handle your business. You go 9-2. You do what you do. And that sets up a big bout for you in Tennessee, which is likely to be a televised game. You know what I'm saying? Again, for y'all two who pretty much determine maybe who makes a CFP playoff. You know what I'm saying? So big game for Vanderbilt at home. Obviously, you got Clark Lee. Like he should be able to help them guys, coach them well. Your tight end is one of the better ones in the country, Eli Stowers. You got pieces. But if you Vanderbilt, don't want to play with Kentucky. Kentucky, they can draw out a game. Texas struggled with them on the road too. They needed the last second. I think it was field goal in order to come out on top against the Wildcats. So it's a massive game for both teams. Vanderbilt, they should be good. You at home. You know what I'm saying? In front of the whole crowd, top recruits in the nation going to probably be up in there. You know what I'm saying? You want to do what you're able to do. You want to impress people. I think Vandy should be fine in this game and should be able to obviously beat Kentucky, but don't sleep on McGowan and them boys. They can get it going, man. And Kentucky, no one wants to say it, but they're a really well-coached team. They really are. They're a well-coached team, and they make it tough for you. So I'm going Vanderbilt, but don't sleep on Kentucky in this game if you're Vandy. But they should be able to win 31-17 over Kentucky. Or 9-2 in the year, 5-2 SEC. This sets up a big bout with them in Tennessee next week. Should be a good one. All right, I think I got one more. All right, last one we're going to talk about for today, y'all. Michigan and Maryland, right? Another team, Maryland, I think they just actually fired the coach, if I'm not mistaken. I got to make sure I do my research now and make sure, but I'm pretty sure they did, if I'm not mistaken. But we know Maryland they have a really good pass rush, right? They're going to be good for some years to come. They just got to get the right people in place, right? Now, Malik Washington has had his ups and downs this year, right? He's been on, he's been good, right? He's been good. When he's had games, he's been on the downside. It's been kind of tough for him. But really the battle of two true freshman quarterbacks, right? Bryce Underwood, who's been decent this season. You know what I'm saying? You've seen the flashes. They got to get more talent around him. You know what I'm saying? They got to get people that can obviously help him out. So going forward, but he's done what he's supposed to do for you if you're Michigan, right? This really a trap game though for Michigan because Maryland's a team you'll sleep on. You're like, oh, they're 4-6, 1-6 in the Big Ten, but they got pieces in Stewart. They got guys that can get after you on the defensive line, right? This is not a slouch team, right? Like they're actually pretty good. So if you are Maryland, what you want to do is you want to make Bryce Underwood feel uncomfortable, right? We seen last week against Northwestern, uncomfortable, they struggled, right? Marshall has stepped in good. We know Justice Haynes been, last couple of weeks maybe been dealing with a little bit of an injury, but we know how good he is with the ball in his hands. Marshall's been doing really good at picking up the slack, 871 rushing yards. Bryce Underwood's also a threat with his legs, you know what I'm saying? But if you Maryland, if you get after Underwood, force him into some mistakes, right? That kind of plays into the hands of your defense a little bit. Obviously, that's middle of the pack, but that can make plays on the ball, right? So if you Maryland, you want to pull off an upset, you need Malik Washington to have a good game, you need a good game on the ground, and you need to shut down or slow down, but I would say shut down Michigan's rushing attack because that's a key component and piece of their team. Them running the ball, right? If they can't run the ball, you know what I'm saying, it's kind of hard for them to win on the outside. Even though Maryland's prone to giving up big plays, you still feel good with your chances if you obviously the Terrapins when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to be a key in this game, obviously, for Maryland if they want to come out with a win. If you Michigan, establish the run. You know your defense has been, pretty good this year to keep you in games when your offense is struggling, but you're gonna need points in this game, right? You're gonna need points, and you don't want to fall behind early because it could become tough later in the game. So if you're Michigan, you want to handle your business, set up for a big bout at home this year. Last year was in Ohio State, big bout at home in Ann Arbor when Ohio State travels comes to your place. And that could be a propelling game for you if you Michigan, knocking off obviously Ohio State, being 10-2 on the year, and really shaking up that Big Ten. And that'll kind of be your ticket into the CFP. So big game for Michigan. You want to handle your business, set up for a big bout between you and Ohio State that following week for rivalry week. And if you can win that one, man, you'll be obviously in a nice place. So I'm gonna go Michigan, but don't sleep on Maryland. They got the pieces to pull off this upset. But I'm going Michigan, man. I'm gonna go. I don't think it'll be high scoring. I'm gonna go 2017 victory over Maryland. Yeah, they're gonna be close. Not a high scoring game, but Michigan should come out on top. So I'm going with the Wolverines. All right, I think that is it in terms of obviously all the matchups. All right, y'all. Now let's get into last but not least for the show, the Heisman candidates, right? And I think up top, I'm gonna go Fernando Mendoza. He's been having a really good year, 2,641 yards passing, 73% completion percentage, 30 touchdowns, and he's had a Heisman moment. His Heisman moment came against Penn State, game they struggled in. Excuse me. He goes and throws a late touchdown pass to his receiver, phenomenal footwork, by the way, and was able to lift them over to a victory. They're 11-0 in a year, likely going to make the Big Ten championship game. They've been phenomenal all season long, and he's just been flat out getting it done. So he deserves to be a candidate. I would say he's the leading one currently constructed as it is right now. Ty Simpson kind of took a little bit of a step back after struggling against kind of Oklahoma a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But still in that conversation, I say still a top three candidate with what he's been doing. 21 884 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, just one pick. So he's been really good this year. I think he deserves to be obviously on the list. So he's one. I'm gonna put him 3. I'm gonna put Julian Sain number 2. I think Julian Sain for Ohio State's having a phenomenal year. I mean, his completion rate is insane, 80%. 80% this year. He's been phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? He's been great. And I love that he's even in this conversation because a lot of people will be like, oh, well, he has Jeremiah Smith. He has Cornell Tate and all these guys. But the big thing for Sain is he's going to have to prove it over the next few weeks, right? Obviously, you got a game up this upcoming weekend. Should be able to do your thing. But if you're Ohio State, you got Michigan, right? You got Michigan that following week. Big rivalry game on the road. That's going to be a good test for Julian Sain and a massive game for both teams, right? Then Big Ten championship likely. That's going to be another massive game for you. Then the playoffs. So you're going to really get to see the true test. Obviously, he won the game against Texas this year, but you can see more tests coming up for Julian Sain and seeing if he can obviously pull it out. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to be massive. But he's my number 2. I'm going to go actually, you know what? I'm going to go Ty Simpson 3. I'm going to go Marcel Reed 4. I like what he did. He struggled a lot in that game, but being able to bring your team out from a 33 hole, throwing 4 touchdowns, nearly 500 yards passing, that's getting it done, man. He deserves to be in that Heisman conversation. He's been having, obviously, a phenomenal year. I like what he's been able to do. He's been great so far. Deserves to be in that conversation. And then next up, I'm going to put Haynes King over Diego Pavia. I like what Haynes King has been able to do, right? A lot of people sleep on Georgia Tech, but he's a big part of their offense. Number 1 offense right now in total offense in the country, nearly 500 yards, right? They put up a lot of points as well, man. And whatever his team needs, he delivers. Whether it's in the run game, he has nearly 1,000 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns this year, or in the passing game, he has over 2,000 yards. And the crazy part is, some of this year, they haven't even been only leaning on the passing game. They've been leaning on the running game. So I think he's been having a great year, man. You got to give credit to Haynes King and what he's been doing for his football team. Phenomenal player. Deserves more respect on his name. And I think he's really slept on. So that would be my list to close out. My bonus pick is Jeremiah Love. I love what he's been doing for Notre Dame. He's been a big reason why they're as good as they are offensively, and he's been a freight train runaway, man. He's been phenomenal. He deserves to be a finalist in my humble opinion out of all of them. So, like I said, if I had to take one off, I would go. I might go. We'll see what Ty Simpson does. I won't leave him off, but I definitely will put Jeremiah Love in the Heisman conversation. He deserves to be a finalist in my humble opinion. What he's been doing this year. So there you have it, man. That's my Heisman candidates, man. How I would rank them. But big games coming up this weekend. That's going to obviously determine the race, and obviously that's my predictions and breakdown, man. Hope y'all boys enjoy it. I'm gonna post this on the tube, man. Y'all make sure y'all check it out. All of my predictions. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.